Hi everyone, thanks for coming along and joining me today. We're here to look at Quentin Blake, the person who did all of those amazing illustrations for Roald Dahl stories. Just one of the writers that he illustrated for, not the only one. We're going to need a pencil and eraser and some paper. Thick paper would be best, so watercolor paper, a paintbrush, some tissue paper, and I'm using my Arty Amber watercolor set. You could just use coloured pencils or any watercolor pencils that you have lying around, or you could use watercolor paint. So any of those would be fine, but I'm going to be using my watercolor pencils for today's session. That's all you need, so let's have a look at who Quentin Blake was, what he did, and then we can get started on our picture of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Studied at Downing College in Cambridge and then worked at the Royal College of Arts in London, the RCA, for 20 years. He published his first drawing at only 16 years of age in a magazine. He's had his work published in magazines, storybooks. He's also written books himself, about 30 books. He's had his illustrations published, around about 300 illustrations published in books. He's illustrated for magazines, he's illustrated for hospitals, including the Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge and the Hospital Armand in Paris. And he's been invited to create artworks for derelict buildings. So there's a building near St Pancras Station. You can go and see his work. So as people sort of come out of St Pancras Station, after they've been travelling, they come out and they see this massive mural that he painted on the side of an old derelict building there. He first started working with Roald Dahl in 1970, so quite a long time ago. And they published their first book together in 1979. It was The Enormous Crocodile. So that was their first book. Not many people know this, but he also illustrated the only Dr. Seuss book that Dr. Seuss didn't illustrate himself. It was called The Great Day for Up. In 2013, he was knighted by the Queen, so we can now refer to him as Sir Quentin Blake. And he was knighted for his contributions to art, especially the artwork that he contributed to children's storybooks. So now that we know all about Quentin Blake and what he did, we can get started on our project. So grab those materials and let's get going. Let's find the middle of our page with our finger, roughly the middle, and let's do a hop up and a hop across. So hop up, hop across. And it's there that we're going to start with a circle for the eye. So he has a nice big round eye, and make sure that you've pinned me, or that I'm on, that I'm nice and big. You can actually pin my screen so that you can only see me. So just make sure that that's nice and big, otherwise it's going to be so teeny tiny for you. And then somewhere at the top of that, I'm going to do his little eyeball, because he's looking up in the picture that Quentin Blake did. So we're going to have him looking up. We've got quite a bit of drawing to do today, which is quite nice. We haven't done drawing in a little while, so we're going to do quite a lot of drawing. Okay, let's do a line above that. It's kind of straightish line. And then we're going to pretend that we're going down a slide. So we're going to pick up this line here and we're going to go wee down the slide, nice and long. Let's really make his nose super long coming down that slide. And then at the end of that slide, we're going to do his little itsy bitsy nose. And he kind of has this very skinny nose. So it's going to be very skinny there, and it kind of bulks out as we come down into the rest of the body. Okay, we're going to pick up at the end of the nose, or the bottom of the nose, and we're just going to jump our way across. So we're kind of getting these little zigzag lines here as we jump our way across. And then we're going to bring that line in for a nice big smile. He's smiling to himself because he's feeling very mischievous. And then we're just going to carry that line on. So going from the smile, we're just going to carry it on a little way further. And up here we're going to put in an ear, nice pointy ear. And then just before that one we're going to put in another one like that. So we've got his super cheeky, mischievous face there. And then we're just going to kind of block that off with the scarf that he's wearing. So we're going to grab that line of the ear and we're going to come down and touch the line of his cheek here. So we're just going to come all the way down like that. We're just going to close that off. So he's just got a head floating in space at the moment. He kind of looks a little bit odd perhaps, but that's okay. So down here we're going to add his scarf. So let's just put in a little shape there for the scarf. Where you think his neck would be, we're going to put a scarf around the neck, and we could even have sort of two little flappy bits coming out there, flapping in the wind as he's running away from whoever it is that's chasing him, because he's got a bag of swagger. And then we're going to put in the bag of swagger next. So I'm going to touch the scarf here. Where shall I go first? I think I'll come out here first. So I'm going to touch the scarf here, and I'm going to come out and up like this. So we're starting to get in the bag. The bag's going to kind of come down here as well. So we have a little curve going up there, and we can even put in the other curve there so it looks like it's open at the top. And then let's put in some lines coming down here, put in some little lines, some little sort of different curves and things like that, so it looks like the bag is full of all sorts of goodies. And then let's have it coming all the way back up to the scarf again. So it still looks rather odd, just a head in a bag, but we're growing, we're growing. And I'll give you a minute just to put something in the bag there. So in the drawing that Quentin Blake did, he had some chickens that were hanging upside down in this bag, but perhaps you don't want chickens in your bag of swagger. Perhaps you want diamonds or something else, something precious, something you think that would be quite precious. So I'll just give you a minute to think of something to put in your bag of swagger, and then you can rub out the lines of the bag that are going through your object. So if I had an eraser that could rub out Sharpie, I would rub out the line of the bag going through my chickens there. The arms are actually going to be coming up and holding onto the bag over here. So I'm going to start the arm just underneath the bag, roughly here, and it's kind of coming down and going back up to reach for the bag. So we've kind of got to put in this C shape. I'll do it again so that you can really see what it looks like. So it goes around again like that. So there's the arm. And then we have to put the paw in after that. The paw kind of grabbing onto the bag there. The way that Quentin Blake draws isn't very graceful or realistic. It's very, very cartoony, and he really exaggerates the cartooniness by doing things like funny fingers or funny paws. He doesn't want to make anything look realistic. Let's put in the arm at the back here. So I'm actually going to touch the arm that I've just drawn. I'll touch where we think the elbow would be roughly, and I'm going to do another arm coming up. So he looks like he's got two arms reaching up there for the bag, slung over his shoulder. Okay, now I've got this gap in here where I've got his arm. There's a gap there. I'm going to put his shirt in there because he was very smart. He was a very smart Mr. Fox. So I'm going to do a little shirt in there. So I'm going to do a zigzag coming down starting from the top. So I touched his paw, came down, zigzag, and I carried on down to meet his arm. So I've got my little zigzag in there. And we're going to jump over the arm. So where I've just done my zigzag there, and jump over my arm, and I'm going to continue round. So this is going to be his coat that's kind of flapping in the wind there. So we come right underneath our bag of goodies, and we're going to come into a point, so just around there. It's almost like I've done a big smile coming down and around our bag of goodies. So stop there, and then I'm going to come all the way back, but this time I'm going to touch the bag. And then I'm going to do another little point here. I'm going to touch the bag this time. I'm going to do another little point, and then I'm going to touch the line underneath. So there's his tail coat there. And then we're going to come down into the legs and things like that. Let's just put in the rest of his shirt, and then we'll do the legs. So underneath his elbow down here, we're going to put in 2 nice long zigzags, and that's his shirt hanging down here. So you have to imagine that you're jumping over, the shirt is jumping over the elbow and hanging down there. Okay, let's put in his legs. So this is a little bit of a tricky part. We've got lots of curves and things to do for this part, so it's a little bit tricky, but we can do it. We've got this. Let's touch one of those zigzags, doesn't matter which one, the zigzags of the shirt. I'm going to touch the back one, and I'm going to come down on a curve and down on a diagonal. So I'm sort of headed off into the corner of my page here with that line. And then we're going to go back the other way a little bit. So we're going almost like a boomerang. I've drawn a little bit of a boomerang there. And then we're going to go back out the other way again. And when we get there, we can do the little lines of his toes. But remember, we don't want to do them realistic, really super cartoony, as cartoony as you can make them. We want to really emphasize the cartooniness here. And then let's start traveling back. So let's take those toes back. So I'm just following my line before, like a train follows its tracks. We just follow along as before. We come around our little corner there, so we come around, and we're going to come into the knee. So we can see now that this is slowly turning into a knee. So when we come around where our knee is, we're then going to go back the other way. So we're doing a curve the other way. Instead of curving this way, we curve that way. So then that's his thigh. So it's all very tricky. It's all very curve this way, curve that way, do a corner here, do a corner there, do toes here. It might take you a little bit of erasing and doing again, but that's okay. I had to do it about 5 times before I managed to get it right. Alright, let's do the other one. So this one's just kind of hanging in space at the moment. So this time we're going to come up to his coat, and we're going to do a line that touches this line here, so it's not just hanging in space, and then we're going to come round into his other leg. And we need to make him look like he's running. So just underneath his coat there, I'm going to come down, touch the line that I've just done, and I'll come around into a nice hook. Let's get that hook in there, or that L shape. And from that L shape, I'm going to continue down, and I'm going to do another hook. And then I'm going to add some toes, some cartoony toes. And don't worry if you've got one leg longer than the other. that's fine. It kind of adds to the illusion that he's running. So that's quite a good thing if his legs aren't the same length. And then, like a train follows its tracks, we're going to go up and we're going to curve around the corner there. We'll curve around. That's quite an important part, that curve there. We don't want to make it a corner, we want to have it curved. And then from there we come all the way up to the bag. And then the last thing that's left is a tail, a foxy tail. Okay, let's do a nice bushy tail. So we're going to start at the coat, somewhere along the coat, it doesn't really matter where. Start anywhere at the coat. And let's do a nice bushy tail. It's flapping in the wind there. Nice and bushy. Lots of different kind of marks and zigzags. Try not to make them all the same. Each line should be a little bit different from any other line you've done so far. The more difference, the better. So really go for it. Lots of mark making. Are we ready to get some colour on this? Yes! It's totally up to you what colours you do here. I'm going to roughly follow Quinton's colours, roughly. But it's totally up to you. It doesn't matter, it's your drawing. Oh, shall we put in the ground? Let's put in the grass. Let's put in the grass as well. So the way that he does this is very rough and rugged, just lots of marks, all different sorts of marks. He doesn't like anything to be sort of graceful looking. Just getting lots of different marks, and he's even got a moon. I think his moon's over on this side, but I'm sort of running out of space here, so maybe I'll do a little bit of a moon on this side. There, that's better. We've kind of filled the page now with something, so that's nice. Alright, I'm going to get into some colours now. I might start with his bag of swagger. So, what shall I use? I'm going to use, if you're coming along with me and using the Arteza pencils, I'm going to use the turmeric colour. So it's kind of a goldy yellow colour. It's called turmeric in the Arteza box, if you've got those ones. I'm really loving the Arteza brand for pretty much everything. I've started using most of their things now, and they're really good, and they're a fraction of the price of super expensive and super professional materials, so I do highly recommend. Alright, let's add on a little bit of colour to this bag. So when we're doing this, we're not going to make it really scribbly, so we're not going to kind of do this, because if I put water over that, nothing's going to happen. The colour won't be able to spread around, and we're still going to have this kind of zigzag mark. So we're going to stay away from that. Instead, we're going to try to keep our colour, our lines, nice and close together. And we're going to go around the edge, because that way we've got a really good chance of getting some lovely tones in the middle here. So let's go around the edges. And it needs to be super, super chunky. I like to call it chunky monkey. Super chunky. Doesn't have to be neat, which I really like, because I do not like neat. I can't really do neat. It's just not in me to do neat things, really. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to put some on the inside of the bag around these upside down chickens. You don't have to press very hard. Your hand shouldn't be hurting. You don't have to press hard. As long as you're doing it super chunky and you're keeping your lines really close together so that it's a solid block of colour, then you don't have to press hard. So we should get some tones coming through there when we put some when we put some water on that. I'm going to do his coat and tails, not his tail, but the coat tail. I'm going to do these ones, so that little zigzag line in there, and his arm, and the other arm. I'm going to come around the bag as well, the underneath of the bag, just to make sure that I've got lots of paint when I come to put water on this. So when we add water, it's just going to spread the colour around everywhere, and it's going to give us a really nice kind of wash, and it's going to pick up all those lovely tones. So we'll have dark red and light red, dark sandy colour and light sandy colour. Oh, his shirt. I can't remember what colour he did his shirt, so I might do it. Maybe I'll do it green. Do the shirt. I might just colour in the whole shirt in there because that's quite a small space. So I'll just do his whole shirt. So we don't have to be very neat with this, it's just getting the colour in there really, and then the water's going to do all the hard work for us. It's going to spread it all around. We just have to get the colour on. And then you can have some time to do your treasures in his bag, whatever colour you would like. Those lovely little things. I can't wait to see what everyone's done. This is the worst thing about doing online art, is that I don't get to see what anyone else has done until the very end. It's torturous. One of the things that I love about Quentin Blake is that he's kind of messy with his artwork. It's not very neat. He has kind of lines flying here, there and everywhere. There's lots of movement, there's lots of motion, and that's really great. That's what I love. I've got a couple of colours for his fur. I've got, what are the ones that I've got here? They're called Passion Fruit and Garnet. So it's kind of like an orangey brown and a muddy brown. So I'm going to take two browns for the fox. So one more orangey and one a little bit darker, so that we can add on little bits of detail afterwards. Not very much, because I've been telling you that he didn't really do very much detail. So we're not going to do very much, but a little bit. And I'm going to start with the orangey brown. If you don't have an orangey brown, then swap it for an orange. Yeah, that's fine, Elsie. And I'm just going to do a nice kind of light mark all the way round, nice and chunky. But if your hands are starting to hurt a little bit, then just press really, really lightly. We don't have to press hard. So just go around the lines. Okay, let's come around. So the more pencil you have now, the more paint you're going to have later when we add water. And the less pencil you have now, the less paint you're going to have later. So if you want lots of paint like I do, then you're going to need lots of pencil. Pop in his tail. Don't worry if you're not as speedy as I'm being super speedy. But don't worry if you're not that speedy. Everyone needs to work at their own pace. So if you're taking your time, then that's wonderful. You go ahead and do that. We've got in his little paw, let's not forget the paws.
Amber.
I'm going to do the same colour coming up the nose and the head and the ears. Around the mouth, the cheeky smile. And I'll do his scarf blue, I think. But any colour you want is fine. Don't want you to feel like you have to come along with my colours if you don't want to. And we'll save the nose till the very last because we're going to be using black. So we just want to make sure that we've got all of the bits of the fox covered, the treasures in the bag, his scarf, his shirt, his paws, his arms, his tail, his legs, all of that should be nicely covered. And then we can add on some green and perhaps a little bit of black or something around the moon to help give that a little bit of a shine. Alright, I'm going to get a little bit of green on the grass here. So I want to be sort of quite messy with my grass down here because I want to follow along with the style that Quentin Blake used to do. So I'm just going to kind of scribble on some green here and there. You can kind of hold your brush further towards the end. It doesn't have to be everywhere, perhaps there are some parts that you leave. Just kind of follow the lines that you've already drawn on there to help that sort of be a little bit of a guide. And then I'm going to use a dark kind of purpley blue to go around the moon a little bit. And I'm going to use the water to kind of spread that out and make the moon look like it's glowing a little bit. Let's just spread this out. So do it quite wide. Yeah, I reckon we can get on some water now, and then we'll save the muddy brown and the black for last, I reckon. So the next thing you're going to need is a couple of sizes of paintbrush, one small and one large. And you'll need a pot of water. And some tissue is quite handy to have as well, some kitchen towel tissue, that's quite handy, or a rag. So large and small. And let's start with Mr. Fox because he's the fun bit. Let's start with him. So I'm going to dip into my water there, but I don't want large drips kind of dropping off my brush. I give it a little tap. Yeah?
Like large paintbrush or little?
Small, please.
Okay.
And let's start on the face here. We want to activate the pencil, so we have to take our brush over the top of the pencil first to activate the watercolour, and then we can spread it around. We can't spread it around otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere if it's not activated. So you activate it first and then spread it. Activate it and then spread it. If it's not working, if you're sort of just spreading around water, then it might be that you haven't activated the pencil, or it might be that you don't have enough pencil. Could be one or the other. So I'm just going to do the actual the actual fox for now, so the head and the tail, and then I'll move on to his legs. And we'll see some lovely tones coming through now. So you can see on his tail here I've got dark brown and light brown, so we get those nice tonal areas coming through. So I'll just keep going with this. And if it's too brown, like if you've got the opposite of not enough, if you've got too much colour on there, then you can actually take colour out. So what you do is you clean your brush and you dry it on your tissue, and then you take it across the colour that you want to take off, and it lifts it out. So you can do that as well. If you don't have enough colour, then you have to wait for it to dry before adding on more. You can't do it whilst it's wet. You'll just end up with these marks on your paper. It won't work. So you have to wait until it's completely dry. But then you'll know for next time that you need to do much more than you think. So it's all a little bit of a learning curve. Quentin Blake really loved to use watercolours on his illustrations. You can create some really nice effects with very little. I've done all of the fox so far. I've done that nice orangey brown colour, and then I'm going to wait for that to dry before I add on some other details. So now I'm going to come up to pretty much just everything and anything else. Perhaps I'll do the scarf first. And the chickens. And then I'm going to come to my large paintbrush, and I'm going to paint around the moon. So I'm going to try not to paint on the moon if I can help it. I probably will end up though. And then I can kind of bring that, once the pencil's activated, oops, I painted the moon. Once that's activated, I can spread it around a little bit more. You can spread it around as much as you like, so you don't have to stay in that one place where you have the pencil. We'll try not to paint too much of our moon, otherwise it won't glow properly. Yeah. And I'll use my large paintbrush for the grass too. So we'll probably get some scribbles of grass, but that's okay. That kind of adds to it really, I think, having those lines coming through. We definitely don't want to be neat, so anything that helps us to not be neat is going to be good for us. Just a little bit on the end there. This one, garnet. So we can use garnet. Alright, we're going to take our mud brown and we're going to put it straight in the water. We don't want to put the entire pencil, we're just going to dip the colour bit into the water and give it a little shake. We don't want big drips. And we can add some little detail, so we can add whiskers. Nice long whiskers. We have to keep on coming back into the water. This is one of those things that the pencil dries out really quickly. Just after like a couple of strokes it dries out, so you have to keep on going back into the water. We don't want to soak it in the water either really. And we can do a little bit of detail on his toes, perhaps do those a little bit darker. Go back into the water. Just put on a little bit of a darker pencil there, and perhaps on the ones back here as well. And a little bit on the tail. You can't really do colouring in with this, but you can do little marks. And maybe a little bit on top of the ears there. And perhaps a little bit on top of the legs. So this is nice contrast. We're bringing out the contrast now because we're using a bit of a darker brown here, and so that gives us contrast then to the other browns that we've used. Could even do a little bit on his jaw. There we go. That'll do. And then the last bit will be his nose. So I'm going to do the same thing with black. I'm going to go into the water and give him a little black nose. And you could fill in the eye in black as well. And there you have a mischievous, fantastic Mr. Fox. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a really great time doing this project. I loved drawing Fantastic Mr. Fox, and I hope that you did too. Please make sure you send me photos of your artwork because I love seeing what you've all done, and I love to share it with the rest of the world as well. So have a great rest of the week or weekend, and I hope to see you soon. Stay creative. Bye.